What the heck is proximity advice, and why is it so bad for you? Hello and welcome to the 167th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host, and today you are in for a treat. We're going to get into the bad advice that you get from people and who they are, who usually gives you the worst advice, and how to avoid them, what to do when you're at a crossroads, how to handle fear, and a whole lot more. But as I mentioned in the last podcast, I'm starting something new, giving away over $100 worth of goodies in my new little welcome kit. And all you have to do to be eligible is visit either iTunes or Stitcher, leave a 5-star review, and then let me know that you did it by simply texting the word sales to 96,000. So you just bust out your cell phone and type the word sales, S-A-L-E-S, to 96,000. Let me know that you did it so I know who you are, and you will be entered to win. Each week I will give away one kit to a lucky winner. So let me know. And if you've already done that and you would like additional free resources to grow your business, check out my new website. Brand new opt-in on the homepage. It's a free 7-day mini course on how to automate your sales and take control of every sales situation. It's just right there on the homepage, thesaleswhisperer.com. And now on to the show. Jason Treu, fellow Texan all the way from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Wes. Thanks for having me on your show and speak to your fantastic tribe.
Well, man, thanks for rescheduling for me. I had to participate in a little charity golf tournament yesterday. So, you know, it was for the kids, baby. It was for the kids.
I love doing I do a ton of charity events and nonprofits, so any excuse is a good one. So that's even a better one to cancel.
Oh, yeah. So, hey, you are the owner of BeExtraordinary.tv.
Yes.
But for those that may not know your whole story, I've seen you've been around the block, written some books, been guests of some big podcasts. But would you mind taking a minute or two to tell us about yourself, and we'll dive down the rabbit hole?
Sure. Living in beautiful Dallas, Texas, and my life has taken a very circuitous route, just like almost any entrepreneur. I went to law school and got my master's in communications from Syracuse University, went to Silicon Valley and worked with some great people, worked with Steve Jobs when he came back with Apple, was at Yahoo when Mark Cuban got acquired from there, was at HP working with Mark Hurd and a bunch of other great places, and just didn't feel like working in the marketing world was something that I absolutely loved, and just found that coaching was where I wanted to be and started doing it on the side like 5-6 years ago, when it sort of developed into my business and executive coaching business now. And I absolutely love it. And I wrote a book called Social Wealth. It's a how-to guide on building great personal and professional relationships. And last year, and it's sold like 32,000 copies and done really well. So it's something I love to do. And I love talking about relationships, influence, and sales, because that always comes up with almost every single client.
Well, you know, I didn't realize you used to be an attorney, so we may have to end this interview kind of quick. All right, so you go to law school, and then, so what were you doing in tech?
So I was doing marketing. So I was in the marketing world and really helping on branding, communications, and working with external people like media and analysts, and, you know, working with the sales teams and how to better to tell their story as well.
I mean, were you doing the contract side of marketing, or were you in the marketing role?
I was in an agency for a while, and then I went in-house with some startups and public companies. So I kind of did the gamut of everything. Gotcha.
So, well, how was that working? I mean, those were some big names. I mean, even back then, you know, what were these guys like real people behind the scenes, or were they real jerks behind the scenes?
It's very difficult to work in those environments, because I was at Apple, and I tell people about my experience by Apple is that 98% of what you did was crap, 1% was okay, and 1% was good. So I don't know. In the year that I was working on there, I never heard him say or anything come out as far as great ever, no matter what result was achieved. So maybe there is at some point, but I didn't see it. So it was definitely a really challenging environment to work in. And with a lot of the people, it just is. So,
yeah. What about Mark Cuban? He seemed like a good dude.
Yeah, I didn't really get to work with him much. It was just they got acquired because I was working on Yahoo on the agency side, and he was pretty nice. But I mean, you have to be in a pretty good mood when you're accepting $1 billion check. So I mean, you're not really too not happy if that happens. So.
I was expecting 1.2 billion, and they renegotiated it. And I took the billion because I had a golf game later that day, so I wrapped it up. It
You're
put me in a bad mood,
I hear you. It happens.
But yeah, I got over it. I did.
Yeah.
All right, so you're doing law/marketing. You're in the thick of it in Silicon Valley. I mean, people give their left arm to get out there and jump into what you're doing, and then you turn around and leave it.
Yeah, I found that I had periods where I was really productive and loved my job, and then I found that I had periods where I was not. And it took me a long time to really connect the dots on why all that was happening. I just thought, well, maybe I was just getting burned out. I mean, there's 1,000 reasons I went through, but when I really, later in life really figured out that it was that my top emotions are connecting and belonging. So being around people, and as an extrovert, that is what gets me fired up. That's what gets me passionate about life. And the problem was, the better I did, the farther I was sitting in a room by myself working on presentations or doing things that I wasn't interacting with people. And so that was really kind of a point when, I started doing some coaching on the side. Actually, I was helping other people at the time. I helped 2 friends help their friends move from one city to another. And I found that, all the stuff I had told them about their lifestyle and building relationships and networking really paid off. And then I started dabbling it on the side. And then I found that was much more passionate about doing that than I was going to work every day, working on PowerPoint presentations or some, thing that I had to do that I was locked in a room and really not really having an opportunity to really meet with the same people that I did before and do what I really loved.
Dude, the secret to life is PowerPoint. What is wrong with you, man?
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. I got to screen my guests better.
Yes.
Attorney doesn't like PowerPoint. I don't know, man. I don't know if we're going to get along. What's going on? All right, so you're coaching these people on the side. Now, it sounds like you were just maybe the elder statesman, and somebody's like, hey, what do you think? And because you're an attorney and work with some big firms, people are like, hey, Jason, you probably have some advice for me. They kind of start that way. And then
I had a pretty big network of people. I was pretty extroverted at the time. And I am now. I've gone out to events a lot. I've really sort of mastered human behavior and building relationships with people. And so my friends all knew that. My friends will joke around me and call me the mayor of Dallas. I know people. I can really build instant rapport with people and really get down to what matters to them really quickly. I've had that skill set, and I've honed that in over the years. And I was just doing this on the side and working with a friend in LA and more, lifestyle, personal development with people. But I really wanted to get into some more business. And so it slowly evolved. And really last year, I got a couple really high-profile business people here in Dallas that I really worked on hard to get some great results, and they've just had some magnificent transformations in their business and their lives. And then I just have gotten more people, and it's sort of taken off. So it's
So did I hear that right, though? You were doing kind of moonlighting, if you will, for 5 or 6 years before you made the leap?
Well, less than that, probably 3, because I think the challenge is that as I was doing this on the side, I was learning how to do better coaching as well. And I had a full-time job, right? I was working 60 hours a week. So there's only so much you can do to move this forward.
Right.
And, at some point you have to make a leap of faith and just go in it full time, because I knew that if I was doing it on the side, that I just couldn't ever get enough time to really devote to this. So at some point I just was like, okay, I wanted to dive head first into it. And, that's what I did. And
so talk to me about that leap of faith, because it's easy to looking back to just say, oh, I made a leap of faith. But there's everything from business cards to websites to money in the bank. Do you incorporate? When do you give notice? There's a lot that goes into that leap.
Yeah, I had the company I was working with is going through a big transition, and I knew that best thing for me was to leave because there was going to be a lot of turmoil. So it was kind of a little bit of a perfect storm. At the time also, with the person I was working with, because I had a business, we were actually starting to have a little bit of a falling out. So I was like, okay, this is a perfect time to see if this relationship is going to work or not. And so it just was a opportunistic thing. And I decided, if I don't do this now, when am I ever going to do this? When will be the right time? And I said, all right, well, the right time is now. I might as well see if this has legs, if I can figure all this stuff out. And so I just took a leap of faith. I mean, I had some of it figured out, but a lot of it I just didn't. And, I had some really difficult moments where I realized in my life with my business partner, I was playing Robin instead of Batman, yet I was doing most of the business. So I was putting myself second. And after doing a lot of thinking as well, I realized in life I've been an only child. My parents got divorced. I spent a lot of time by myself. I wanted to build a business with someone else. But in the end, that was actually the wrong thing because I was putting myself second and sacrificing for someone else when they weren't. And so I had to get over that hurdle. I had to get over the hurdle for asking for help because growing up I was on my own. I had to be self-sufficient or I would have just never survived. Things wouldn't have happened. So there was a lot of emotional things that I had to realize that were holding me back from creating the business I have now. And that really, really helped me out. But it was a lot of soul searching and painful moments and experiences. And, I had a lawsuit with my business partner who took money. And it was a pretty messy time in my life a couple of years ago, but I just kept plowing forward because I believed in myself enough to saying there has to be a way. I have to figure this thing out. And so I just got curious and, just try to take it one step at a time, but was not easy. And, I didn't have a ton of support on it either. I think people thought I was crazy. Right. And even my mom and stuff and people who loved me unconditionally, I think questioned a lot of what I was doing at the time.
Well, that's why you can rarely, if ever, take advice from friends and family, unless they are experts in the niche that you're seeking advice. They just mean well, but they have a different perspective.
Proximity advice is the worst advice ever to get. So it just is. So I found some more people. I asked them. I talked to them. And then ultimately, a lot of this I had to build myself. Success leaves clues, but I wanted to build a business in a different way. And, especially going into doing business and executive coaching, I started to look at where the holes were after doing a lot of work and reading and just thinking and talking to people in it. And I found more of my niche, but I was like, okay, how am I going to exploit this, right? How am I going to put gas on the fire? I'm just going to have to work really hard. I'm going to have to overservice some clients, and I'm going to have to play these scenarios out, and I'm going to be patient and wait them out and see, can I really do this the way that I want to do it? Because I want to be able to go into a client and say, I know that I can get you not only a great return on your investment for every dollar you're giving me, but I can really create a life that you're going to love that you never had before.
So how do you know that? Part of me thinks, if I'm going to answer my own question, is that people are people, and that if you know somebody in a certain situation, in a certain demographic, certain socioeconomic position, you probably know the challenges that they have, and you've helped people do that, or overcome it. Is that a part of it?
Yeah, it's a part of it. A lot of it is that I spent a lot of time trying to master change and understand where are the levers that people get stuck. And what happens for people is they have a behavior they want to change. And we know that doesn't work by changing behavior because people do New Year's resolutions all the time. And if you operate a little lower, they have a story around that behavior, right? Maybe, and I did some sales training for a client, and one woman came in and she was like, I love doing sales, but I hate, the getting rejected from people and having negative experiences. And she went to some common stories that she had about the world around her. And the difficulty with that is she did sales training. She did some affirmations and other things, and it just didn't help because that little voice inside your head comes around and says, when you get resistance or negativity, see, I know you couldn't do that. See, I know you couldn't sell. And then what happens is people get stuck in this behavior and story, and it goes around and around. And the key gateway for all this is your emotions. You have to understand your emotions and what's driving them and where they're coming from, because that opens you up to be vulnerable, authentic, and really get down deep to start looking at what are the limiting beliefs of your life, right? Because those are as powerful as anything else. Because if you equate not being good enough with 1 + 1 = 2, it's a fact for you. You don't know the difference between one or the other. And that creates the blind spots that you have, I have, everyone has that they can't see. And then when you deepen lower, you start finding that the patterns that we have under the age of 10 from our parents are what cause us all the challenges we have in life. And because we learn, model all our behavior from parents and siblings at that point. And I've done this hundreds of times. I've done it in sales things. I've done it in my business clients. It doesn't matter. It always comes back that those are the hurdles, right? And the woman I did for sales training, what I found out was the fact that she had a very high voice, and her mother and grandmother made fun of her. And especially when she was on the phone when she was a teenager and even in college. And she hated getting on the phone right now because she thought to herself it was always getting neglected and pounded on by her family and all this, that when she got on with clients, that story would play back in her head. So instead of doing that, I just said to her, lead with that story as why you got into sales. And almost like magic, everything turned around. And she's had 4 of the best sales months she's ever had from just telling that from people, because that's courageous and vulnerable. But you've got to sort of see that process. And then you start to open up a lot for you, because then you're really powerful in the real world when you're learning relationship skills, networking, sales, whatever it is, because you're aligned internally and externally. And that's what most people are not. And especially on the top of the world, that's really powerful, because people who are really successful don't find this in other successful people.
So, it sounds like you're a psychotherapist.
Part of this is, part of this is because it's when you see the patterns that are in your life that are going on, you don't feel like you're broken. And that gives you a lot more energy and passion and resiliency to make the change, because you realize if you just do this little shift, you can have really significant impact on your entire life. And that makes all the difference in the world. And then when you get into doing other training in the external world and what you do, you're way more powerful. But you have to go inside and really understand where are your fears, where are the things that are really holding you back, what are the stories that you're making up that are absolutely not true, and those limiting beliefs along with them that are the things that are creating the challenges in your professional but your personal life as well.
Now, can people figure this out on their own? But it just takes longer? How did you figure it out?
It's possible. It's hard because you cannot see your own blind spots. Right. I have a coach myself, and I've used multiple coaches. We cannot see our own blind spots because our brain is programmed like that for us to move forward in life, because we just get overwhelmed if we knew everything about ourselves. And it takes talking to someone else to really find that. You could find a mentor, you could find a support group and work this out. You can't really do it by yourself, because you have to have people where you're talking this thing through, that people can lead you through asking questions about what's really going on. And then you have to do some soul searching along the way as well to come up with this. But it's, in my opinion, absolutely critical no matter what you're doing, because I see it's my clients now. It's magically they're better. They perform at way higher levels, are super successful, more than they've ever been. And it doesn't even take that long, because it's these little things that happen all the time.
So I see in your title, it says business and executive coach, but you leave out life coach. Is that on purpose? Because it sounds like you're getting into life stuff, but
yeah, but because a lot of my clients are coming, all my clients are VP level in a corporation and above, and then they would be entrepreneurs with more than $1 million that they're making at least at the bottom line. And then people working in sales and doing some sales training. But a lot of this stuff is that I'm focusing on a business problem or business problems that are happening with them in their life. But part of this is working through where they've been in their own life so they can see the patterns that have gone on that are holding them back. And partly also, some people do have personal problems, right? I have a client of mine who's a woman and is a CTO in a large company, And, her marriage is the thing that was holding her back, right? So helping her in that area is now going to create much an opportunity. Just like, when people walk into work, there's not like a neat little bag where they drop their personal life off in front. They take it with them, and that affects their ability to be productive. And it costs corporations a huge amount of money, that personal problems that come in the door, or people that don't take care of themselves, whatever it might be. So these things either have to be addressed or you're going to pay a pretty high price.
Very interesting. If somebody's got $1 million, it seems to me like they're already successful. So do you find that you're an additional coach, or do some of these people, have they never had a coach?
Most people have never had a coach. I don't find it. I'm not competing against anyone. When I go into people, I haven't found a situation yet on a business and executive level where there's been like they're choosing between multiple people. It's just me or nothing. That's been my experience so far. I can't say that for everyone, but it's really about that, because most people are not looking for it because they're not thinking about it. So the alternative often is they're having a lot of problems, or they're disassociating from their lives, right? Like I have clients that have had alcohol problems, drug problems, affairs, where they're surfing the web. Anything to not be present in their own life and deal with what's going on. And that's from a really high executive level down, right? Those people doing that stuff all the time. We just don't talk about it. And it's not a conversation that's being had. And a lot of people there have no one to talk to either. Again, they have proximity advice. You're CEO of a company, who do you talk to, right? You can't talk to the people above you, the board. Your people that you're hired on the C-suite team, that's your team. You go home unless your spouse, if you have one, is someone who's been an executive. She doesn't get it. A lot of people don't have that many close friends necessarily either, right? It can be a very challenging time to not have anyone around you, and you keep all this stuff locked in and locked up, and it's the things that are slowing you down at some point.
Well, so how does somebody open up? Because I know I see this a lot. The entrepreneurs and high-level performers, we are stubborn and thick-skinned and think, if I have a coach, then I'm weak. I just need to get through this and suck it up. How does somebody get over that and realize, hey, surrounding yourself with experts is what the A players really do?
Well, I think someone has to be open, right? So I think people that come to me are already open to exploring it. They're typically stuck. The passion's gone out. They're at a crossroads. Perhaps they've had a liquidity event where they've really made a lot of money and they're not sure what to do next. Or perhaps they've hit a divine storm, meaning they have like multiple things that are going wrong and pretty bad in their life. So they're at a point where they're willing. And if your people are at least willing a little bit, they can get pretty massive results, because when people let all these emotions out of themselves, right? Because if you look at something like people feeling shame is about silence and secrets that people have that keep down deep that lead to all these judgments about themselves. And when you can release all of that pressure and get that all off your chest, immediately, even without doing anything else, you immediately feel better, right? But when you can start seeing that if you tell people your story in life, you share your truth, you're vulnerable, you're authentic, and you give to people within boundaries, you're really powerful. And I think as my clients take a little bit of leap of faith along with it, they all get immediate results in it, and they start to see the evidence, and they're like, wait, if I keep doing this and put gas on the fire here, I can really create something pretty amazing. And then they just run with it, keep running with it and moving forward. And
well, what can someone do? A lot of people listening to this don't have $1 million. They're not executives. They're trying to build something. They're an entrepreneur. Maybe they're a salesperson, still in corporate America, trying to get things done. Where can they turn to get this type of assistance?
Well, they don't need $1 million. I don't charge my clients that. I'm just saying, that's the clientele typically I have. But I think partly is you've just got to start asking yourself the questions on first is asking yourself, what are the stories that I'm making up in my life about why I can't do what I can do right now, right? And then whatever that is, right? And I start off even before that, what's the behavior going on that I want to change, right? Like what happens if I'm feeling stuck? Okay, well, what am I feeling stuck around? What's the story I'm making up around it that I can't make more money, right? I can't do this. And I think that's part of it. And then start to feel the emotions that are going on around you. What are the emotions that are happening there? And then I look below that and say, okay, what are the limiting beliefs I have around that? I'm not good enough. I can't sell to people. I'm not smart enough to get this done. Because then you can start looking at, okay, when's the first time in life that you've ever felt this way and what happened? And when you ask yourself that question and dig at that layer deeper, you can start to see, when's the first time that I never felt good enough? When's the first time maybe even that I didn't feel like I could sell to anyone, right? Whatever that is. And you can start seeing the patterns that are going on, and that helps you start to turn the light on what's been going on and why you're thinking all this stuff. And that starts to get you in the path forward.
Very interesting. Now, that's not really what you get into, though, in your first book, is it? The social wealth? I mean, that's
no,
more...
a lot of that's getting into helping people start to build relationships with other people and really understanding how to go in a room or how to professionally go and build contacts where people are willing to really help and do anything for you.
Right.
And so that's really what I focused on that book. One, because that's what people want to hear. And it's way easier to teach that than this part we're talking about now inside of a book and doing exercises there. So I wanted to help people at least get part of the way there. And by doing, things where you're knowing where to go, knowing what to say, how to be effective at conferences, how to leverage them to create wealth and opportunities. And you could really create something. And it was a how-to guide. So I sat down and I was like, I want to make it so someone would never have to go coaching with me and could walk away and be pretty successful and have the answers without doing anything or buying anything else from me ever.
Right. Because, I mean, having the guts to live, love, lead, network, you got to be at least a little bit open, right? You've got to be open to meeting other people, realize that you're not an intrusion, that you're worth knowing, you're worth hanging out with and having a beer with, right? Yeah.
And part of it also is just helping people think through how would you go doing this, right? Especially for people who are like introverted, who are really worried about it. And I go through in there and talk about going to charity and nonprofits, meaning museums and symphony and opera, because and with charities, that's where people of wealth and money, that's where they go. And the great thing is all those organizations have happy hours, they have events, and they're time bounded. So people who are introverted and worried about spending a lot of time can go and plan to go to events like that. And if they're even more worried about it, what they can do is go volunteer to work the check-in table. So you could go work the check-in table in an event and do the first or second shift. And every organization needs help. You can meet people as they're walking in, get familiar with the room. And then it's much easier to go out and meet other people because you're meeting them for the second time, right? So I wanted to give people practical advice that they could do and execute on their own and be really successful just by reading the book and following it and going forward. And you don't have to be an extrovert to do it. You just actually have to just take the time.
Yeah. Just put yourself in that situation.
Exactly.
Right? I mean,
right?
Give yourself a chance.
Right. And the great thing about going to events and places like that is, people in those environments, they're all there to meet other people, right? Because that's why they're going. And they're also there in the spirit of giving. Mm-hmm. And so that's a great place to start off in. And those are all could be personal or professional contacts or both, which is even better because now you've got all these opportunities sitting there waiting for you. You just have to actually go and show up and, talk to people, and you can make some pretty magical things happen.
Right. That's pretty cool. I haven't really thought of it, hitting it from that angle. But that makes so much sense.
If you're a salesperson, that's where all your clients are sitting. And it's easy because you can go and there's a reason for you to talk to them, and they'll show up most likely again and again and again. So you don't need to have to meet every person in a room. They'll most likely be involved in that organization. And if you want to get more involved in the organization, then you can even meet more people and operate in a different level. And I just find that's a really powerful way. Conferences are another great ways too. If you know how to work them, they can be really effective and a gold mine, but you've got to have a plan, and a process and understand what to do when you go to them. Otherwise, what happens is you don't, right? Because I went to a Fortune CEO conference in Austin with one of my clients, and my client was amazed because I set up meeting, and we had some amazing meetings with people like the executive chairman from Royal Dutch Shell and the president of Siemens and a bunch of other people. And we were like literally the only person having meetings before the conference started. I mean, it's incredible. We were sitting there in the Four Seasons lobby, and my client looked around and said, why aren't there more people here having meetings? And if you have a meeting with someone, you're sitting down. That's how you know, right? It's not informal.
Right.
So it's like, well, that's the problem. So there's all these people spending, $4,000 in conference fees and not leveraging the conference. So that's the problem, right? It's these little steps that you need to do that can make all the difference in the world and build some amazing relationships. And a lot of these people going to conferences, they're not that busy. And you can get to them, because I did. I mean, how do I get to the executive chairman of Royal Dutch Shell, one of the biggest companies in the world, and get a meeting with him? And I don't know anything about energy, and I don't have any background at all, and I managed to do it.
Were you basically just tracking them online? You figured out, did they have a booth there so you knew he might attend, or what?
I saw people that were speaking, and then I asked them for, if they had a list of people that were attending, and they sent me one, right? And so I just reached out to them and pitched it and just came up with ideas. And I'm like, I always love to meet innovative, great people. And I did some research and background, and it took a lot of time, but I mean, and my client was amazed. I was like, I sent 25 meeting requests out and got 6 meetings.
Right.
In an industry, my client's in the shipping business, so that wasn't really even at all, right? So I was like, look what magic we can do at other places. And he went to TED last year, the TED conference in Vancouver, and killed it, and met, Bill Gates. He met the CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, and Tim Cook sent him an iPhone that was signed on the back at the conference and wrote him a note. I mean, he's email him back. He's had business deals that are making him, right now that are going to be valued at hundreds of millions of dollars coming out of that event. On pure profit that he will make out of that one event.
Right.
So it's all waiting for people. You just have to get in there and, lead in your life, right? Lead with vulnerability, lead with authenticity, lead with speaking your truth, and magic will happen in your life. Because at that level, people just don't do that. It just doesn't happen. So you have way more opportunity, in fact, going to the harder conferences and higher level ones than you do at other ones.
Right. Well, I mean, I love practical advice because most people, I just came from a conference that I spoke at, and I reached out to quite a few people ahead of time and was able to put, a face to a name once we got there. But I had one person do that to me, and we ended up hanging out the whole time. And
exactly,
just a cool lady. Now I've got her coming on my podcast in a couple of weeks. She's killing it in her business. And I was surprised that, people just don't do it, but most everybody, they're happy to go party, they drink all night and they show up late to the conference the next day and they're hungover and they're just kind of zombieing around with no real plan at all. That's
my point, right? So if you have a plan and can execute it, right? The other plan too is just sit in the front row. Because the great thing is if you go to the sessions early, you can meet some of the speakers that are there. You can wish them good luck. If you sit in the front row, they know you're sitting in the front row and they like that. And then if you say something to them afterwards, even if you don't have a long conversation with them, that's great. You've touched them 3 times. If you follow up afterwards and want to get a meeting with them, they're going to be way more ready to do that than they would another person.
Right.
But it's just, you got to get early to the session. You've got to sit in the front. There's all these little things, practical things you can do that make all the difference in the world. But most people just are like zombies walking around with no forethought and no plan, and they don't have any strategy in what they're trying to accomplish. And that's why it's so easy, right?
Right.
It's like you saw that yourself, right? If more people would have reached out to you, you would have met with more people, but they didn't. And they had a great opportunity. And they could have learned a lot from you. They could have asked questions, been engaged, and, had free time to ask an expert on something that they would have never had. That could have made a huge impact in their business and life. And what happened? No one took advantage of it. Almost.
Yeah. I did have one guy during the conference. He messaged me, I don't know, maybe through Twitter, and said, "Hey, are you still here? I want to meet." I said, "Yeah, I'm here." I think it was the end of day one. I said, I'm here. I'm visible. I'm speaking tomorrow. I'm around. I'm here through Saturday. Come find me. And never heard back.
Yeah, well, that's what happens, right? So if we apply that in other areas of our life, that's the difference. That's why anything's really possible and we can be limitless. Because if the bar were too high, that wouldn't be possible. It just wouldn't be. Yeah. But it's not, right? And that's where you have to think differently in all areas, right? Just even like sales. I'm going to one of my clients and helping them do some different type of sales training, not, the traditional kind, but really more where I'm helping people see their blind spots, really find their purpose, tap into more of their emotional intelligence, and really open themselves up because what they're doing is not working and they're having a tremendous amount of turnover and they don't really know why. And, we're giving this a whirl and see if it's going to impact what's going on. But you got to be willing to try new things and step out. But it's easier to want to try new things when you look at your revenue and you see it flatlining.
Right. Yeah. Everybody gets really creative and hungry and ambitious then, don't they?
It changes the conversation, what goes on. But then also, like even for myself, like I've got to lead with it, right? I've got to talk about it and bring it up. I just can't sit there and not. So you got to people start leading their life and stop waiting around and asking permission from other people. You just have to do it and get a plan and execute with it and be willing to be in there for the long haul. A lot of people want these quick hit and quick results because they hear stories like that. But the reality is, if you talk to most entrepreneurs, it's been a grind for a while and they just kept at it longer than other people did, asked a few more questions and really maybe paid some money to get coaching and training and other things that made all the difference in the world and why they're successful today.
Right. Oh, man. Well, Mr. Jason Treu, and it's pronounced Treu. Make sure everybody knows that.
Yes.
This has been fantastic. Do you have any parting words of wisdom for our listeners?
I mean, I'd say one, it's time to take courageous action in your life and, find 3 things this week that you can do that you're scared to do and step into uncertainty and get it done. And I think that will, when you can take a leap of faith and you realize that in life, the motivation and momentum is in the action of taking the leap of faith. And if you wait around, you'll never be ready.
Yeah. Amen to that. So everybody can find you on beextraordinary.tv, correct?
Yes.
And from there, I found all of you're everywhere, man. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram. Good grief.
Yep. All over the place.
No, there's no excuse for people not to be able to find you, huh?
There isn't. So I'm on YouTube too. So it's hard not to find me somewhere.
All right. Sounds good. Jason Treu, Dallas, Texas. Thanks for coming on the Sales Podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Interesting stuff, huh? What kind of baggage and blind spots are you carrying from literally your childhood? Who are you working with to help you reach your goals? All great performers, especially athletes we always know about because executive coaching, things like that may not be quite as obvious. But I assure you, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Tiger Woods, pick any athlete, even in NASCAR, Tony Stewart, those guys. They have coaches. They have people helping them with diet, with psychology, sports psychology, how to think, and, of course, how to perform. So who are you turning to help you grow? So that's why I really wanted to have Jason on. He doesn't pull any punches, but these are things you need to be considering, things you need to work on if you're going to perform at the highest level. And you know what? If you're going to get in the game, then why not play to win? So that's why, again, I want to have Jason check out, Social Wealth, his book, check out beextraordinary.tv, and you can get all of the notes, everything we're talking about here, everything we link to at thesaleswhisperer.com/session 166. And as I mentioned before, if you leave a 5-star review on iTunes, Stitcher, any of the places online where you subscribe to the podcast, then please send me a text at 96,000 is the phone number. And text the word sales, SALES, to 96,000. Let me know that you did it. And every week I'm going to be drawing for my Sales Success Toolkit. I'll mail out to one lucky winner each week. So as always, thanks for listening, and remember to sell different.